The chain of thank yous glowing star. It began with something so small that no one noticed it at first. On a rainy Tuesday morning, Mrs. Eleanor Finch stood at the bus stop, clutching her coat tighter as the cold seeped in. The bus was late, her shoes were damp, and her patience was thin. When the bus finally arrived, the driver, tired from an early shift, opened the doors without a word. Mrs. Finch stepped on, paused, and smiled. "Thank you for stopping," she said warmly. The driver blinked, surprised. Most passengers rushed past him, eyes on their phones, minds already elsewhere. Her words lingered. As she took a seat, the driver felt his shoulders relax just a little. At the next stop, when a young man struggled with a stroller, the driver stepped out to help. When the man boarded, flustered and grateful, he said, "Thank you so much." The driver nodded, smiling now. "You're welcome." The young man got off near a cafe. Inside, he ordered a coffee, still holding his child close. When the barista handed him his cup, he said, "Thanks for being patient." The barista, who had been dealing with a long line and a broken machine, felt her irritation soften. She replied with a genuine smile and added a free cookie to his order. The customer behind him noticed. When it was her turn, she said, "I really appreciate you. You're doing great." The barista's eyes shone. Later that afternoon, when an elderly woman struggled to count her change, the barista gently waved it away and said, "It's okay. Thank you for coming in." That woman carried the warmth with her to the grocery store, where she thanked the cashier for working such long hours. The cashier, feeling seen, went home and thanked her teenage son for helping with dinner. Surprised and pleased, he later messaged his teacher to say thank you for staying late to explain a lesson. The teacher read the message that evening, tired and doubting her impact. She smiled and replied, "Thank you for telling me. It means more than you know." The next day, she thanked a quiet student for their effort. That student went home and thanked his sister for sharing her notebook. And somewhere, far from the rainy bus stop, kindness continued to travel, soft, steady, and unseen. Mrs. Finch never knew what her simple, "thank you," had set in motion. But the world felt a little lighter that day, carried forward by a chain of thank yous, each one linking one heart to another, reminding people that gratitude, no matter how small, has a way of multiplying. The chain did not end there. In truth, it had only begun to stretch. The quiet student the teacher had thanked, his name was Amir, sat at his desk that night, staring at his homework with a rare sense of calm. Being noticed had felt strange, almost uncomfortable, but also warm. When his younger sister knocked and timidly asked if she could borrow his colored pens, he didn't sigh the way he usually did. Instead, he handed them over and said, "Thank you for asking first." His sister beamed. The next morning at school, she thanked a classmate for saving her a seat. That classmate, feeling unusually cheerful, thanked the librarian for helping her find a book she'd been searching for all week. The librarian, often overlooked, often rushed, paused, touched by the simple acknowledgement. Later that day, the librarian helped a nervous job applicant print his resume, staying past her break. "Thank you for not rushing me," he said, his voice thick with relief. That evening, emboldened by kindness, he went into the interview with confidence. When he got the job, the first thing he did was call his mother. "Thank you," he told her, "for believing in me when I didn't." His mother cried quietly after the call ended. The next day, she brought homemade food to her neighbor, a widower who lived alone. "Thank you for always checking on me," she said as she handed him the warm container. He hadn't realized she noticed. That night, the widower sat by his window, thinking of the years he'd felt invisible. The following morning, he thanked the street cleaner sweeping the sidewalk outside his house. The cleaner, unused to such words, worked with a little more pride that day. When a child waved at him from across the street, he waved back and said, "Thank you for the smile." The child laughed and ran home, thanking his father for walking him to school. The father, late and stressed, slowed his pace. He thanked the traffic officer managing the busy crossing. The officer, soaked in heat and noise, stood a bit taller. Across the city, gratitude quietly stitched people together, on buses, in kitchens, in classrooms, on sidewalks. No headlines reported it. No one traced it back to its start. Yet the air felt softer, conversations gentler, pauses longer. And back at the same bus stop where it had all begun, Mrs. Eleanor Finch stood once more, waiting. This time, when the bus arrived, the driver greeted her first. "Good morning," he said. "Thank you for waiting." She smiled, unaware that a single thank you, spoken days ago, had grown into something far bigger than either of them could see. The chain kept moving, not in a straight line, but like roots spreading beneath the ground, quiet, patient, reaching places no one thought to look. The traffic officer the father had thanked returned home that evening with sore feet and a tired smile. At dinner, he paused before eating and said to his wife, "Thank you for keeping everything running when my days get long." She blinked, surprised. The words felt like a warm blanket after years of shared routine. That night, she sent a message to her sister she hadn't spoken to in months. "Thank you for being there for me when we were younger. I miss you." Her sister read the message again and again before replying. The next day, she walked into her workplace, a crowded tailoring shop, and thanked her apprentice for fixing a mistake without being asked. The apprentice, who usually felt invisible, worked with renewed care. When a customer came in, frustrated about a late order, the apprentice listened patiently and said, "Thank you for waiting." The tension softened, and the customer left smiling. That customer was a nurse finishing a double shift. On her way home, she stopped at a pharmacy and thanked the cashier for staying open late. Later that night, in a hospital room glowing with quiet monitors, she held an elderly patient's hand and said, "Thank you for trusting me." The patient, who hadn't heard those words in a long time, whispered back, "Thank you for staying." The words followed him into sleep. The next morning, when his estranged son arrived, awkward, unsure, the old man gathered his strength and said, "Thank you for coming." The son swallowed hard. Before leaving, he thanked the nurse, the receptionist, even the volunteer who pointed him down the hall. On his way out, he stopped by a small flower stall and thanked the vendor, buying a single stem for his father's room. The flower vendor, touched, tucked an extra bloom into the wrapping. "Thank you for reminding me why I love this work," she said. Later, she placed leftover flowers outside a nearby shelter with a small sign, "Thank you for being here." People passing by paused, some taking a flower, some leaving with damp eyes and lighter hearts. One of those people was a young woman on the edge of giving up. She picked up a flower, held it tightly, and whispered, "Thank you." That evening, instead of isolating herself, she wrote a note to her old friend, "Thank you for never giving up on me. I'm ready to talk." Miles away, lives shifted just slightly, enough to matter. Back at the cafe where the chain had once passed quietly through, the barista wiped down the counter at closing time. On the tip jar, someone had written a note. "Thank you for your kindness. It changed my day." She smiled, unaware that she was part of something vast and invisible. And somewhere in the city, gratitude kept moving, hand to hand, heart to heart. Not loud enough to be praised, not grand enough to be celebrated, but powerful enough to change the shape of ordinary days. Because every thank you, once spoken, never truly ends.